Pressure is not something Steph Curry feels. He applies it. He goes with the knockout blow. How about 9 of them? 9 big threes in the greatest Olympic performance of all time. Yeah, I'm fired up, and I said it. Greatest of all time. We're talking about it on today's Locked On Dubs.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Holy cannoli, this is crazy.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen of every day, free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, it is good to see you. Go ahead and give it the thumbs up. If you like Steph Curry and want him to drop 10 threes in the gold game, thumbs up. That's what you do. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want it to. But this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That is right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Charlie Walter here, formerly of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, covered the Warriors as well for CBS Bay Area, KPIX, and San Francisco, and saw some amazing things from the chef. But today, he was absolutely cooking. You get a 3, and you get a 3. 9 of them for Steph Curry in the game today, and I wanted the chef hat. Unfortunately, I did not think this was going to happen. And who did after the way that the Olympics started for Steph Curry? But a near record-setting performance. We're talking all about that. Also, Eric Pincus on the show today. He's general manager of the Sports Business Classroom, a writer for Bleacher Report. You've seen him on NBA TV before. So that's going to be a great conversation talking about where the Warriors stand financially, how the new CBA has affected them. He's an expert. Not everyone is in terms of the finances. So he's got you covered in just a little bit. But the United States of America, God bless them. 95-91. They take down Jokic and Serbia. They were down as much as 17 points in this game. Greatest Olympic performance ever. Yes, 1,000% hands down. I don't think it's a question. And it's because of the circumstances. Let's break this down kind of piece by piece. First off, Steph Curry has not been good in these Olympics whatsoever. It's just a couple games ago, went 1 of 9 from the floor, went 0 of 6 from 3. It was after their last matchup where he said he's a decoy. He's like, honestly, I'm just out here to make hard cuts and, basically space the floor for everyone else because I'm getting hounded out here. Wasn't getting hounded today, or at least had just enough space to knock down threes because he hit some difficult shots with hands in his face. 36 points for Curry, the most by an American Olympian, since Melo had 37 against Nigeria in 2012. Curry had 9 threes in the game. And without Steph Curry, the United States was toast. This game probably would have been a laugher. That's how bad the U.S. played. And give Serbia some credit. They were incredible. Really good. I know Luka had 48 in his debut. Patty Mills dropped 42 and 9. Oscar Schmidt had 55. Manu put Argentina on his back and dropped 28 to stun USA. This is the greatest performance ever, though. Curry started off with 14 of the United States' first 15. He had 14 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. Team USA was 1 of 8 in the first quarter, aside from Steph Curry. Curry had 6 threes at halftime. U.S. was toast. They were done. Down 17 at a point in this game. Down double figures in the fourth quarter. They needed a miracle. No, they didn't. All they needed was a little Curry flurry. Not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they wear the number 30. He was incredible. I cannot say it enough. It would have been one of the most disappointing Olympic losses in U.S. history had he not went off, because they would have lost. Again, I emphasize it. They were not winning this game. And with all the talk in the last week surrounding stack up the 2024 Olympics team with the dream team, who's winning, and you heard so many talking heads out there saying, you set a line, it's probably pretty close. I mean, they're going U.S. +4, -1. There were a few out there that said +7.5, but case in point, this was a pretty good basketball team, to say the least. Hall of Famers all over. They have old talent. They have young up-and-coming talent like Anthony Edwards. They have players sandwiched in the middle like Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis. Every position they're dominant at. All-stars throughout. They're really good. Draymond guaranteed a gold pretty much on his podcast. He said there's no way the United States is losing. No one can hold a candle to this team. In fact, Steve Kerr should not be basically configuring the lineups due to matchups because other teams should configure matchups due to us. No one stands a chance. Draymond almost mushed the entire country. And Steph Curry said, I got you. We'll take care of it. Made sure it did not happen. There was also a history book picture, I think, in this one. If you've seen it thus far, Curry's going nuts. And for those of you that are listening, you can't see my face, but just imagine this sound. Ah, something along those lines. I'm fired up right now. United States are going for the gold. But Curry went nuts in the air, pumping his fist, U.S. flags in the background, the stars and the stripes, U.S. signs in the background. Incredible piece of history right there. Whoever took that picture, kudos to you. You did your job. You did your job. Curry's done his job. He's done it all at this point. A 4-time champion, a finals MVP, the American Century champion in Tahoe in the golf tournament. He's an incredible golfer. Let's not forget that. Was just the third active athlete to win that tournament. He now has a comedy sitcom called Mr. Throwback. It's apparently an incredible piece of art. And now, in his first Olympics, if he can get a gold medal and the United States can take down France, you can look at Curry's performance as the reason why, because he saved this team, no doubt about it. United States will get France in the next game. What a matchup that is for gold. The hometown team and Victor Wembanyama. France took down Germany in the other semifinal game. 73-69 was the final score of that one. The U.S. did beat France in the Tokyo Olympic Games years back. So this is a rematch. And notice I have to say years back with the COVID and everything. It was hard to figure out when those Olympic Games actually went down. The 2020 Olympics that did not happen in 2020. But we got a rematch of that game Saturday. United States going for the gold. Steph Curry thought he may have been touched by Father Time. Thought that some fans out there thought that a 36-year-old Curry was starting to age a bit and showing in these Olympics that maybe, just maybe, now was the time where he would fall off somewhat. Yeah, right. Greatest Olympic performance of all time. Beautiful stuff from Steph Curry. Give him his flowers, and let's give the United States, hopefully, a gold medal due to the performance from the Golden State Warriors star. Coming up, we got Eric Pincus on the show. He's the general manager of the Sports Business Classroom. He's going to talk about the Warriors' financial situation, how he thinks the Warriors fared this offseason, and shedding payroll while also trying to make their team better. That's coming up. Priorities in life are just tough to keep intact. Like, for example, all I want to do right now, I actually don't want to do it, but all I need to do is paint the fence and cut the shrubs and, quite frankly, cut the grass because it all looks terrible. I just cannot find the time to do it. Instead, I'm going to the gym and shooting hoops for an hour, thinking I'm going to be the next Steph Curry, lefty, spending 10 minutes in the steam room and cold plunging like I'm the next Mark Wahlberg. Like, what am I doing? But priorities are easy to slip. We know what makes us happy. And sometimes if you make time for it, you don't have time for the things that you need. But non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. You could switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so the big thing that I want to know with Eric Pincus today is the rule changes kind of explained to like I'm 12 years old, because it is a little bit confusing. We've seen a lot of changes in the last few years, specifically entering this year, that has very much affected the Golden State Warriors. Is it bad for teams who build through the draft? Why did it hurt the Warriors so bad? Just kind of put this in an elevator pitch for me.
Well, let's see how to simplify it. It's relevant to the NBA, all teams. But there were a few teams that were spending more than everybody else, of which the Warriors were one. So from the very basic of if you're the NBA, you want teams in the middle. You don't want teams that aren't spending enough, and you don't want teams that are spending too much. You kind of want everybody to spend in a certain range. And the Warriors and the Clippers were pretty much ignoring that sort of mythos or that ethos of what we're trying to accomplish. And so you mentioned the word the draft, and Warriors fans like to talk about the draft because I think the owner said something about they shouldn't be taxed on draft picks. To me, I don't want to, look, my father and my stepmother live up in your area, your neck of the woods. I'm in LA, and they're all Warriors all the time, like listening to pregame shows. I'm sure they've listened to your show. So I get it. Like, the owner says something, it's gospel. But the reality is like the draft, when I talk to anybody in the league, the NBA, the NBPA, the draft is one of many tools. So it's not more special or less special. Is it more special to find an Alex Caruso in the G League and develop him into something special? Or to make the KD move that they made when they made it, and the way they leveraged players into getting Wiggins, like, was Wiggins less important but the reality is we could talk about the details of how you build a team, but the core element is that the players get half the money at large. Like, if the NBA brings in 10 billion, the players are going to get 5 billion. And there has to be a system to make sure that stays healthy and that it happens organically. And because of teams like the Warriors and the Clippers, it wasn't. So, if a player's getting 10 million, they're only getting 9 million throughout the year. They have something called escrow. So 10% is withheld. And then at the end of the year, if everything works out, they get that extra $1 million back. This year, that $10 million player would have only gotten 500,000 of it back. They would have gotten paid 9.5 million of their 10 million because of the Warriors, because of the Clippers. So it's about making the system whole, and it's not anyone's fault. The Warriors didn't do something wrong. These were the rules. They took advantage of them to the best of their ability to great success, right? So I don't think the league says, the Warriors are the villain here, but they did say, like, this has to stop. And then similarly, there were teams that wouldn't spend money going into the season at all, and they would try to get to what's called the floor, the minimum that you have to spend via funky ways or through the trade deadline. And we want those teams to stop too. So it's not just picking on the Warriors. It's about making sure the split of the money happens properly, and so that the richest owners don't just spend more money than everybody else. The Warriors make more than the Grizzlies do in a typical game. It's not anyone's fault, but like the gate, what they get paid for TV locally, they're going to make more. So should they win more because they're making more? We could debate that. Warriors fans will say yes. Clipper fans, absolutely. I've had people in the Clippers front office say that the NBA should find more owners like Ballmer. But like, Ballmer makes more money or has more worth than like all the other owners combined. And the Clippers shouldn't win every year just on that alone. So there's a lot that goes into your question. It's a fair question. And I don't know if I answered every tidbit of it, but I just like the general philosophy behind it is to make
even the playing field, right? Yeah.
Even the playing field, to make sure the split of money happens properly so that the Warriors aren't costing every player 5% in this particular case, or 10% of their money.
Now, we could spend 5 minutes talking about aprons and all these different things that are involved, but that, to me, I mean, that's quite frankly your expertise. So maybe we should get into a deep dive on the aprons, but I want the interesting stuff. This is YouTube. Come on. We're not talking aprons. In a recent interview, Warriors owner Joe Lacob said he would pay the price, would pay that tax if they were contending or believed they had a move that would make them a contender. Fans are saying, pull up the checkbook, Joe, you're rich. It's a little bit of money. It's not going to cost you anything, but there's negative impacts that come with the penalties on going over this threshold. Can you just describe some of those penalties to the fans that are just saying,
Right.
throw all the money in the world. You have the money, so spend it.
Right. Well, that's kind of the point. Like, and that's how the league used to be, right? Like, if you go back to a couple of CBAs ago, so every roughly 6-7 years, they have a new deal. If you go back far enough, the way that they decided we're going to curtail spending was we're going to just tax teams. And if you spend a certain level, or if you stay spending at the certain levels, we're going to have a repeater tax. That's going to stop the richest teams. Of course it will. And no, it didn't. Maybe it stopped the Pelicans or stopped the Hawks. There are teams that just won't. The Grizzlies, the teams that won't pay the tax, aren't going to pay the tax anyway. But those punishments they were only money. It didn't really impact the tools. And that's where the rules changed in 2017, and where they've dramatically improved, or the opposite if you're a Warriors fan, the way they become stricter in the most recent CBA. And the idea here is that we're going to make it harder and harder, because it's not just taking money. We could take all the money that you want from Steve Ballmer, or from from the Warriors, all that. You could take all the money you want. But if they have the money, and if they're earning the money, they're just going to spend it, and they're not going to care. So that's where the rules have changed over the last decade plus, is that the league is now taking away your tools. And that's where the Warriors faced a decision. Do we, as an organization, reinvest in Klay Thompson and stay at this level of, let's call it $200 million? And all we have at this point is just the minimum. We get draft picks frozen down the road. We can't add salary via trade. There are ways to make moves, but they're very limited. And so as an organization, you look closely at this, if you're the Warriors, or the Clippers are another example, and you say, it's just not tenable. We have to make a change. And so the Warriors made that change with Klay. The Clippers made the change with Paul George, and it's looking at the limitations. So yes, they could go make a move, and they would certainly make a move that would make them a contender. Who wouldn't, right? And we could debate whether the Warriors are a top contender. You could argue with Steph, you're always at least in the conversation, just like Lakers with LeBron. Like, they may miss the playoffs, they may win a title. I mean, it's hard to say. And the Warriors the last 5 years, you could probably say that as well, right? Like, they've not made it through the play-in, or they've won a title. It's like one or the other. It's kind of neither nor, at least not consistently. And so to invest at that level for the Warriors in this maybe doesn't necessarily make sense. But like, you could trade Wiggins, they can decide, do they want to pay Kuminga, who is eligible for a lot of money, and trade him into someone else before he gets paid, or pay him and then after he's paid, trade him after he's paid, and maybe there's a way to add salary that way. So there are ways for the Warriors to go for it, but they just have to be really diligent and careful that it's really the answer. Like, you can't get marginally better. Like the Celtics, they doubled down. Like, they paid Derek White, they paid Jaylen Brown, they paid Jason Tatum, they paid even like Sam Hauser. And yes, like, they went for it, but they just won the title. And their team like isn't different this year, other than like in the tiniest of ways. They didn't lose anybody that they wanted to keep. So for them, yeah, it's worth it. But for the Warriors, can you say, if you're the Warriors, honestly look in the mirror and say, we're better than every team in the West, and we think we can beat the Celtics? And if you're the Warriors, you're probably saying, with Klay, if he returns, we're probably not that. Maybe we're one or two pieces away, but do we want to tie ourselves into only being that? Because then at that point, all you can really do is add at the minimum, right? The Celtics are stuck if this doesn't work, but they just want a title, and they have enough data to say it's worth continuing. And I just don't think the Warriors do. So I respect them making the difficult decisions. I know it's a mixed reception in Warriors fans. And as you said, like, just spend the money, you have it. That's the problem, is that, or it's the solution. Depends on how you look at it. The league has taken away just the throw money at the problem answer. And I would argue that's a good thing. I don't think that I'm in the right. Not in the right. Locked On someone else might agree with me more than Locked On Warriors. But, objectively, I like the idea of where it's going. I don't have enough information to say if this new CBA is a good one or a bad one. I like some of it. I don't like some of it. But I think, at least I can say I get what they're trying to do. And I think it's working if you look at what the Warriors and the Clippers did.
Coming up, we're continuing the conversation with Eric Pincus. Coming up, we're continuing the financial conversation with Eric Pincus. What did he think of the job the Warriors did this offseason? They had to make some moves that made sense financially, cut some payroll. What would he grade this thing? That's coming up. Once the Olympics end, it's the very, very slow season for just a little bit until football starts. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. Then we get basketball, we get football, the collegiate teams start playing, and we get a little bit of everything. A little high school Friday night football. But we get fewer games this time of the year. FanDuel, however, lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and I can dream up bets anytime, anywhere, whenever I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That is right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Given the roster construction right now and how the Warriors did this in the offseason, slashing financials and, keeping some of their assets intact, how do you think they did overall? They didn't add in any sexy picks by any mean, but some vet minimum guys, some not vet minimum guys. They have no vet minimum guys on this team, but some mid-level players and, kept the future intact. What do you think?
I mean, considering it was like just keep Clay and Chris Paul, or that's what this team would have been in theory, right? Like the exact same team you had last year with marginal changes, like really like Lindy Waters, if they had just stayed the same, it was hope everyone's healthy and spend a lot of money and have no real flexibility. Instead, they add DeAnthony Melton, who, to be fair, last year was not healthy a lot. So I like him as a player. The question is he going to be healthy? And if he is, you got a nice guard who can defend. He can shoot a little bit. He's just good at everything. He's not necessarily great at anything in particular, but he's a legit, I call him like a borderline starter 6 man. And so I like him as a player. And then Buddy Hield is arguably a better shooter right now than Clay. We can argue. We could debate it. Clay in his day was a much better defender than Buddy ever was, but Clay isn't the same defender that he was. The injuries and age have taken that from him. I would probably want Clay in a shooting contest, but Buddy's pretty durable. So, and you're paying Buddy $8-9 million if you're the Warriors. So that's a lot. Is he better than Clay? I don't think overall, but you can argue if he's more durable and he's more available, that means he's better because he's playing. So from a point of view, they replaced him pretty well. And then, Kyle Anderson he's one of the slowest players in the league, but he's like always surprisingly effective. I've always enjoyed watching him play because, to be fair, I am not the fastest basketball player. Even in my prime, I was a pretty fast sprinter, but I was not like a really fast basketball player. So I always appreciated guys who use their brain and play with intelligence. Not to say that fast players don't play with intelligence. I'm talking about the ones who can't just play with athleticism, who don't have that and are only, that's all they got is their intelligence. And of course, what I don't have as well, which is size. So, being 5'7" and not particularly fast isn't great when trying to be a basketball player. Wasn't going to happen for me, but in the case of Kyle Anderson, like he's a great passer. He's someone who you can get the ball to in the short roll, basically in the Draymond role, really well when teams are trapping Steph and just trying to get the ball out of his hands. The ball usually goes to Draymond to make a decision, but there's only one Draymond Green, and he might be kicked out of a game, which happens every now and then, or suspended for a few because of technicals, or just needing a day off for load management or in foul trouble. And you have another player who can really help drive your offense. Just with their brain, which if you're a Warriors fan, I think, love or hate Draymond, I think that's arguably his greatest skill is his intelligence as a basketball player. And so you're adding someone else like that. So like you've gotten someone who can play the Draymond role, obviously differently, not the same defender. And you got someone who can play the Clay role. And you got DeAnthony Melton, who you can argue is just, if he's healthy, is probably more effective now than Chris Paul, and you're buying low on DeAnthony Melton because he was hurt last year. If he was a free agent last year before the injury, he's probably making this or more, 15 or so million, and thought a little more highly of. People forget very quickly when someone misses most of the season, and he was a non-factor in the playoffs because he wasn't healthy. So put all that together, and like, is this a perfect team? Are they better than the Celtics and everyone else in the West? I can't say that, but are they improved from last year and in a better financial position? I would argue yes. So for all the crying and, angst for these terrible rules, like, I can argue the team got better and got more economically sound and has more flexibility when it comes to making moves. Like, they can move Gary Payton and Melton or Looney, or like in December, whatever. You go down the road, they have these pieces to make trades that you can package with a Looney, not a Looney, a Kuminga or a Moody, or there's flexibility. So if they feel like, hey, we did get better, we're on the cusp, we're like a big man away. Obviously, Markkanen looks like he's not available, but a comparable player. Easy to say, there aren't a lot of comparable players, but somebody who moves the needle. They have that flexibility in terms of picks. They have flexibility there too. And I don't want to say I recommend trading away first, given that Steph only has so many years left. But if you're really in, like, the season kicks off and they're in the top 4 in the West and looking really good and looking like a piece away, they have the 25, I think the 27. And I think that's all they can do. But they could, basically 25, 27, because they've traded 29 they've traded 30, but Stepien rules mean 29 and 31 can't go out. So it looks like they have 2 firsts to offer, plus Kuminga. I mean, if you're a young team and if Kuminga is at a number that you like, that could be very attractive. If you have a player similar to, obviously Markkanen's looks like he's not in the picture, but I get the point of, like, the Jazz aren't winning. They need to get out of him eventually. And so get multiple picks and young players. It just sounds like they have their heart set on Podziemski, who's probably the best young player from a contract and talent perspective. Because if Kuminga is a better player, which we could debate, he's about to get paid to be that. Whereas Podziemski, if he isn't better, is still going to be in a better contract. And we can debate and argue that he is better. So these are unanswerable questions, but a team negotiating with the Warriors is certainly going to have a point of view on that.
Great stuff from Eric Pincus, general manager of the Sports Business Classroom. Check it out, a national NBA writer for Bleacher Report. Appreciate the time today. Good stuff all around. You know your NBA. There's no doubt about that.
I hope so. I just tell people, take a little more time to learn about the new deal. There's more to it, the new CBA. It is not perfect, and I argue in a very positive way with a lot of colleagues about the merits, pros and cons. And I'm still agnostic, meaning that I don't have a fully formed opinion because I don't think we have enough information to have one. But don't just hate on it because of what it did to the Warriors, when I kind of like what the Warriors are now more than I did a year ago. So how terrible was it, other than the sentimentality of breaking up the Splash Brothers, which matters, but it was probably time 2-3 years ago from my point of view. But I'm just a guy. So, but I appreciate you having me on, Charlie, and anytime, always happy to talk Warriors.
That does it for the show. Thank you to Eric Pincus, and thank you to Steph Curry, sending the United States to the gold game. Peace, everyone. Locked On Warriors.